your name? Don't you play this game? You from another land, got you like it's contraband. Tell me what's your name? Don't you play this game? You from another land, got you like it's contraband.
What's up, guys? Keyshawn Uchi here, back at you with another part 2 of OT Universe video. Now, this will be part 2 of what if Deku was a new god. Now, I'm going to let y'all know right now, the last part of the ending of the what if Deku was a god part 1, I'm going to erase that because that kind of will cancel out the story of the whole My Hero Academia and like season 1 and 2. I mean season 2 and 3 and all that. Pretty much I'm going to erase that because if he just stops off one and then basically, kicks Jigaraki ass as a god, it basically just ruined the season 2. And we're just basically talking about a whole new timeline of other stuff. But for the sake of purpose, we're just going to stop that and just put in something else. But pretty much, let's just go. Now, after the next day, Deku pretty much grabs the letter, knowing that he got in first and beat All Might score and stuff. This is where he sees Bakugo's mom, which she waves at him while blushing, while he waves back at her and smiling. He heads back in his room, basically just going to relax and stuff. This is where pretty much Deku gets a call from me, saying that I need him to come meet me. Well, pretty much to come meet me at this place, which he pretty much teleports, and he gets dressed in his casual outfit. Pretty much with his casual outfit, and he just pretty much appeared. This is where Deku looks at me. He says, "Oh, Keyshawn, what are you doing here?" Which pretty much I smile at him. I says, "Well, I'm here to just say hi and stuff and see how you're doing," which he pretty much saying great, everything. But this is where he knows where I'm hiding something. He says, "What are you hiding?" Which pretty much I say, "Alright, you got me, Mizuku. I gotta let you know. There's some good news and bad news. Which one you want to hear first?" Which he says, "Tell me both." Which I say, "Alright." This is where I pretty much tells him that, after him becoming a god and stuff, the gods have been watching him and they want to have a meeting with him. And also invite him to the gods party, where all gods have party and stuff, since it's the year of all gods meeting up. And 2, I pretty much let him know that some gods might want to challenge him or fight him at the arena to test out if he's worthy of becoming a god. Because, they believe in the old way, some of them, which I tell him both of that, which he pretty much says, okay. This is where I pretty much snap my finger, give him a good, fresh suit, looking balling. And pretty much I get my suit and we start going to the gods thing. Now the gods thing's time flows differently, so it's a whole different thing. Time flows differently. As for the Earth, it will be slow, but for the God Party, actually time flows the same basically, but it goes a little slower, you could say, than Earth. But let's go. Pretty much this is where Deku and I is in the gods thing, and pretty much I start waving at Zeus, while Zeus waving back, and I pretty much go in my group chat of gods, the god of boredom, the god of many things, the god of power, and all that. And pretty much this is where I start talking to him and stuff, and this is where Deku's looking around at the gods party, and pretty much he's drinking, the finest god alcohol, the finest where gods drink and stuff, and meat and stuff. This is where Deku's trying out stuff and having a drink. This is where the Cuban god comes in. Cupid, he pretty much comes in, starts talking to Deku, saying that, damn, his future is actually quite beautiful, and sexy. He ain't gonna lie, he's gonna admit it to him, saying that his power is actually coming in handy. Which pretty much this is where Loki comes in, and this is where Loki pretty much says, "How you been doing any tricks lately and stuff?" Which Deku says, "Yeah, I kind of used it on Bakugo, and it was pretty funny, making him think he was actually a female for one day." Which this is where Loki starts laughing, saying he never thought about that in his years of being a god. Which this is where Thor comes in. He's pretty much chilling, laughing too, saying, "Aha." Which, all the gods are kind of circling Deku around and asking questions. And also, want to get to know Deku and stuff and see what is he. Thor and Loki already have a liking to Deku, which pretty much the gods of Egypt, those gods, they still don't. Some of them don't. Some of them, but pretty much this is where Deku gets to meet all the gods and stuff, and they're pretty much explaining what their power do, so they can see Deku using an action or be creative with, because Deku has been being creative with the god's power, and they want to see what he can do next. But this is where pretty much God comes in, and he's pretty much walking in, and this he begins to start looking at me, and I look at him, and we both just gives each other a stare. Or do we have beef with each other? Nah, we just like to give each other the stare. But pretty much this is where I stare. I'd be like, "Sup, God?" Which God says, mm-hmm. And he pretty much goes to Deku, and he says, "Ah, I see. He does have my perfect image," which pretty much God can see Deku halo, well, his halo on his head, and he's saying, has the perfect image like me. Which he pretty much taps the halo, and Deku looks up and he says, huh? This is where Zeus pretty much comes in and says, you see, I told you, Kishan idea was pretty good. He has all our power, and he has all the great features of us, which Kun Wukong says, he doesn't have any features of me, which Deku says, what are you talking about? I have the tail. I just regularly make it disappear or reappear when I want it to. But it's kind of getting tiring of hiding it, so I just show it here. Which pretty much, this word Wukong sees the tail and says, ho ho! And he starts, dancing around and stuff and says, he does have our image. Which, this is where Deku smiles. And this is where all the other gods are, smiling too and stuff and cheering. This is where one of the gods, and we're just gonna say Hades. Well, no, Athena. Well, you could say the god of war. Pretty much, he starts, talking shit. Starts saying, "Oh, I still don't believe he's a god." Which pretty much, this is where I say, "Oh, I knew one of them would say it." Which this is where the god of war says that he challenged Deku to a fight to arena. Which Deku says, "Okay." Which all the gods are saying, "You accept the fight with him?" Which Deku says, "Yeah. I mean, I have to prove myself as a god, right?" Which everybody's saying, "Well, all right, if you say so." Now, this is where the God of War is pretty much, stretching, getting his weapon and stuff, and pretty much saying that he's going to pretty much whoop his ass. Pretty much he's going to teach him that he's just a mortal and not a god like us. Which just is where Deku pretty much is thinking and looking around and saying, wow, so this is actually a God's arena. This is actually quite cool and stuff. And this is where Deku looks at the machines and also, still have his nature saying, wow, what is this machine? What does that do? Which pretty much is where the God of War is saying, hey, kid, focus on me. Which pretty much this is where Deku says, oh, yeah, right. Now, this is where the God of War challenge starts charging at Deku. And this is where Deku pretty much looks at him. And this is where the God of War pretty much throws a fist at Deku. Well, not a fist. It throws a sword straight at Deku to hit him. Well, not a sword, I'm sorry. Pretty much a fist. They have a fist-to-fist combat. But pretty much is where he throws a fast punch. So Deku can't even see. This is where Deku pretty much dodges it and punches him in the face. Which, this is where he does the perfect punch on his face, sending him flying a little bit back, which pretty much the God of War is freaking out. I'm going to have him be like that God of War in the mythology books of Greek, which pretty much God of War is pretty much freaking out that he's bleeding and stuff, which he looks at the people that's saying, oh, wow, this is where, he cut his fear out and gets back up and saying, you got a lucky punch, but now I'm going to kill you, which pretty much he summons his sword and he starts charging at Deku. This is where Deku still looks at him, and he pretty much dodged the God of War's sword, and he pretty much kicks him in the face, making him flinch and fall back a little bit. As he's falling back a little bit, this is where Deku pretty much create a lightning bolt, and this is a unique white lightning bolt. This is like a white lightning bolt of his own creation, which Zeus and Dora looking and saying, "Oh, what's he gonna do with that lightning?" You think Deku would throw the lightning and shock the God of War? No, he does something much different. he pretty much forms a lightning hammer. A lightning hammer. He forms it out of the lightning he created. A lightning bolt, and he turns it into a lightning hammer. That's like, of a boat, but as a lightning hammer. Well, he basically makes it as door hammer, but into a lightning shape. This is where he throws the hammer with the field of lightning, and as it hits the God of War right in the chest, this is where you hear a ka-boom, and 1,000 lightning bolts shocks straight down at the God of War. This is where the God of War pretty much falls on his knees and pretty much falls to the ground, which all the gods are like staring at Deku in awe. And then this is where they start cheering and saying, "That was amazing!" Which is Zeus saying, "Oh, well work, child." Which pretty much Thor is at the same time saying, not bad. Which this is where everybody else is chilling, but Wukong saying, "I really wish he used my ability," which, Wukong saying that. And this is where all the gods, congratulate Deku on his win and stuff and all that. This is where the Egyptian gods looks at Deku, and they pretty much gives him his respect of just, nodding down a little bit and start going. Which Deku pretty much nods back down. Now, after all that, this is where I come to Deku saying, "You did great out there, kid. I thought you would win that, but because the gods are quite a little bit stronger than you, since you're a new god and you're still, training your power. But sheesh, you actually defeat one of them," which Deku saying, "I never thought I could do it too," which I pretty much smile at him and says, "Well, continue doing your work and becoming a quite stronger god." Which, this is where I tell Deku, don't forget about the gods trying to bring you on their side. Which Deku says, "I understand," and everybody start going on their way and all that. This is where I pretty much sends Deku back, telling him that, if he ever needs a hand, just let me know. Which pretty much I give him a phone, a unique phone that only gods can contact another god. So yeah, pretty much I give him that and I head off. Now this is where Deku is pretty much heading back home. And as he heads back home, this is where he sees his mom pretty much sleeping on the couch because she's working a little bit too hard. Well, working a little bit too hard to pay the bills and stuff because the landlord added more money. This is where Deku pretty much just sees his mom stressed and all that. This is where he heals his mom's body up and stuff, and pretty much just create a lot of gold bars right beside her and leaves a note. And he pretty much heads in his room and go to sleep. Now the next day, this is where Inko is pretty much freaking out, but this is where he starts heading downstairs, which is Class A1 uniform, and he looks at his mom saying, "Morning, Mom," which Inko saying, "How did you get all this gold, Deku? Don't tell me you..." Which Deku says, "Nah, Mom, I didn't rob any banks or anything. I'm still following my dream of becoming a hero. I just simply use my power to create gold so you don't have to worry about working extra hard. And you can pretty much open up your own business and stuff." Which Inko saying, "Deku you don't have to possibly do this for me," which Deku says, "No, Mom. Out of all these years, you have been taking care of me by yourself. My father, I don't know where he's at, and I don't care about him." Which he's pretty much, saying that even when you do get money from father, he hardly gives you anything. He hardly gives you a lot. So Deku pretty much is, talking shit about his father. But he also starts saying that he's not mad at his father. He just really misses him. But he pretty much says that he's just going to head to his class now. Please use this gold to satisfy your needs and stuff. Which Inko promised Deku she would use it. And Deku pretty much heads off. This is where Deku is walking outside. And pretty much this is where the same deer comes in. And Deku hops on the deer and pretty much just falls asleep on the deer. While the deer is taking him to... Well, yeah. Well, no. He pretty much hops on a bear. Sorry. He hops on a bear with antlers. And he pretty much starts, sleeping on the bear while the bear is taking him to the school. Now, as the bear is taking him to school, this is where, people was driving past. But this is where people are just, looking at Deku with these animals. Pretty much following him and on him. There's a, bird on the bear's antlers. And this is like where a bat is also at the other side. Well, well, yeah, no, not a bat on his side, but pretty much you get what I'm saying. Pretty much, there's like a ladybug on Deku's head, and unique type of ladybug. This is also where a spider is like on a deer, and it's not biting the deer or anything. And it's just bizarre to look at. It's a bizarre sight, you could say. But pretty much, Deku is sleeping, and people are just looking at it and driving past, and like the little kid and the mom was walking past Deku, and the kid saying, "Look, mommy, all those animals is pretty much on him," which the mom saying, don't sweetheart, don't, I don't, I'm afraid, which you know as the as they're going past, Deku pretty much is heading to school. This is where a reporter hears the news and stuff, and the cops are coming in to see. Well, pretty much some unit or cops are coming to check the situation because they hear a bazaar of a student who's basically sleeping on a bear, and all these animals on him is around him. They pretty much start going. This is where police officers are about to, they show up and they see Deku, and Deku's pretty much sleeping. This is where, as they reach at the location, this is where, um, the cops are pretty much about to stop him until Deku looks and he says, "Oh, hello, good morning," which pretty much the officers are saying, yeah, good morning. Was that your quirk or what's going on here?" Which pretty much Deku explains that he pretty much has a quirk. Well, he doesn't lie to him. He says that he doesn't have a quirk and he has a higher power. And he explains to them in a simple way they can understand, which they say, "Oh, okay, well, make sure to just, make sure they don't attack no one or anything," which Deku promises at them and smiles, which they say they pretty much both blush, but also be at awe with his presence and saying, "Oh, he's too holy," which they see the whole holiness on him. But pretty much they say, "Yeah," and they pretty much just go. This is where pretty much Deku heads inside, and he pretty much goes in class, sees inside. Well, goes inside, and he pretty much everything happens is the same. Bakugo's yelling at the nerd in glasses. Pretty much, y'all know what I'm talking about, and he's pretty much arguing with him and stuff. This is where Deku just takes a seat and all that, and Bakugo sees Deku, and he gets mad a little bit. Uh, but this is where everybody else is coming in and making noise and stuff and meeting each other. This is where Deku tells everybody to please keep it down, which Bakugo is saying, "Oh, why should we keep it down, Deku?" Which this is where Deku looks at Bakugo with a little bit of serious look, where Bakugo shuts his mouth, and Deku explains that someone's in the back, someone's in that behind that desk is pretty much sleeping right now. Which this is where, as that's happening, everybody pretty much stop making noise and just start just sitting down to their seats and waiting for him to wake up. This is where one of them is having their doubts that Deku's lying. He just wanted the class to be quiet until the teacher comes up and says, "Ah, oh, that was a good nap." Which pretty much this is where he looks at the class and all the class are just quiet and looking at him. Which some of them are freaked out that how did Deku even know this, but they're keeping that cool in front of the teacher. This is where the teacher says, "Huh, interesting class," which he pretty much says, "All right, well, it's time to, check who's here." This is where he says all the names of Class 1A, which he looks at Deku especially the most because Deku looks bizarre out of all of them. Like, I'm saying Deku has, like, how can I say? Deku hair has, has stuff in it, like flowers, unique plants, a little bit of a rose, and some rose petals on the side. Like, his hair got stuff in it. It's not messy or anything. It's not like, oh, in a messy way. It's in a beautiful way. And also his hair smells good. So if anyone buy his hair, they can smell his pheromones and stuff. It instantly wants to, I want to sex you kind of way. Deku can control him. Deku can control it, but he just has it in the middle. But sometimes it gets out of control because he thinks about stuff. But pretty much, this is where he looks at Deku and stuff, and he says, "This kid is very especially different." Which this is where he tells everybody to get their gym uniform on. Well, pretty much get their gym uniform on, and he wants to test up their quirk to see if they're worthy of Class 1A. Which, everything happens the same. and he says he actually he kicked out a whole class before because they wasn't worthy, which everybody else begins to freak out except for Deku because Deku ain't gonna be afraid. He knows he can pass it, so he's not really freaking out or anything. Which Razorhead is looking and he says, "Oh wow, he's not even afraid. I like this kid." Now this is where everybody started doing the thing, and the things are a little bit different. Deku comes in first place in all of them, including the ball throw. Well, he comes in tie in first place with Uraraka because he pretty much just do like pretty much the ball. He grabbed the ball and he just pretty much just tapped. He lifted up and he just tapped it and he just sends it instantly, like light speed flying. And pretty much as he's trying to keep track of the ball, it pretty much breaks. The screen breaks. And he has to get a new one. So Uraraka and Deku's tied in first with that. But pretty much after that, everybody passes because I'm gonna have it like that, and everybody pretty much passes. Now this is where they're all in the class talking to each other, and Bakugo pretty much asking Deku, "What is he?" Which Deku looks at Bakugo and pretty much is about to say it to him until All Might comes in and pretty much say, "I am here." Which, as he says that, he looks at class 1A, and everybody's decided that they, see All Might and stuff. And this is where All Might looks to trying to see the two students. Well, one his apprentice and the other one his apprenticer. So he's thinking about having him as an apprentice too because pretty much Deku has the same power as Bakugo. So he wants to, have Deku, you know, get the same training like Bakugo, and hopefully, just in case if anything happens in Bakugo, well, he pretty much says if Bakugo gets out of control and turns into a villain, because Bakugo do have the villain tendencies, but he's gonna be a hero. But All Might just has a little bit of concern, so he says just in case if Bakugo makes irrational decisions and stuff, Deku can put him in check. So he's thinking about it. But pretty much this is where he talks about the hero versus villains test. And there's going to be two teams on both different sides. One's going to be the hero, one's going to be the villain, and he basically explains all of that. Now, as that's happening, this is where all the teams go the same, and this is where Deku and Uraraka is on the same team, while Bakugo and you basically know him is on the team. Now, as that's happening, this is where Bakugo is saying that he's going to get Deku, while he gets Uraraka. Now, this is where everything goes the same. Deku heads inside the building. Pretty much, he teleports Uraraka at the bomb place where the bomb is at, and he pretty much says he got Bakugo. Now, Uraraka begins to start going to the bomb thing. He teleports her at 2 stories high, so she can. He basically teleports her up on top of the rooftop while she goes downstairs to get the bomb, and he's just gonna go head in first. Now, as that's happening, this is where Bakugo starts coming in with explosions to throw a big, the short smash bomb at Deku, which Deku pretty much doesn't even flinch, and he pretty much is standing still. And I should probably tell y'all what's his hero outfit since I forgot to tell y'all guys that. Deku's hero outfit is gonna be a halo. He's gonna have a halo on top his head, which he's gonna have a halo on top of his head, while his hair is pretty much wrapped up in a ponytail. This is where he's gonna have a jacket. He's gonna have a jacket with gloves, with sawed off gloves. So basically, the gloves with no finger gloves tips. With the fingertips. Basically he's gonna have those gloves, and he pretty much going to have weapons beside him. Well, weapons he can summon. Well, nah, he's not gonna have no weapons. But he's gonna have a belt. He's gonna have a belt. He's gonna have a belt. He's gonna wear jeans, boots with the fur. No, but he's gonna have boots, pretty much. So pretty much he has boots, tactical boots. I should probably say. He's gonna also have pants. Like jeans. Have a jacket, not with fur, and pretty much he's gonna have gloves, and he also gonna have his hair caught in a ponytail with a halo on top. which he can change the halo into a hat, or other things, but or into goggles, or a lot of stuff. But pretty much, this is where Deku heads inside, and pretty much this is where Bakugo throws a massive explosion at Deku, and Deku is pretty much saying, "Is that all you got?" Which Bakugo saying, "What the hell?" Which this is where Deku comes in with and his halo is switched into a hat, and he begins to start a forward cap, you could say, and he begins to start fighting Bakugo. This is where he punched Bakugo in the face, but not too hard to like kill Bakugo or anything, just to give Bakugo a fight and all that. This is where he's pretty much boxing Bakugo and stuff, and hit him with the 1-2, giving him a nice good two-piecer. But as that's happening, this is where Bakugo grabs Deku and headbutts him in the face, which Deku is not taking no pain at all. He's not even feeling no pain. It hardly hurts him. It feels like an itch, more like it feels like a dump. That's what it feels like. This is where Deku is pretending to take the hits, and this is where Bakugo throws a massive explosion at Deku. This is where Deku falls back, and he pretty much begins to pick himself up, which Bakugo begins to saying, "Huh, you like that, Deku?" Which pretty much Deku is getting up saying, "Huh, I mean, it was something." Which this is where Bakugo gets pissed off, and he begins to do his grenade hand and says, "I'm about to blow up this whole building. I'm about to blow up half of this building, including you. Ready?" Which this is where Deku says, "Go ahead. Let me see." Which this is where Bakugo uses the all for one. No, one for all or all for one. Was it all for one or one for all? No, all for one. And pretty much he lets out a massive explosion. I probably said it wrong, but he lets out a massive explosion at Deku. This is where Deku pretty much blocks it. And as Bakugo's looking, and half the building's already gone. And pretty much this is where he's looking, and this is where Deku is just sitting there chilling, and he's pretty much having tea. He's pretty much having tea and pretty much saying, "This tea is quite delicious." And he's pretty much just sitting down now on a little table and stuff, and just having tea and eating some food. This is where Bakugo's saying, "What the hell?" And Deku's pretty much saying, "Oh, hey, Kanshan, I'm just right now. I'm just right now eating some food right now. I was pretty hungry at the fight," which this is where Bakugo begins to start getting pissed off, and he begins to start throwing more explosions. But as he throws the explosions and stuff, this is where, as he's throwing explosions, the explosion begins to hit back at him, and he starts saying, "What the hell is happening?" This is where Bakugo throws another explosion, and it hits him again, sending him flying back. And he's saying, "Why is it my explosion? Is he attacking me?" Which this is where All Might looking and saying, "Is Deku attacking back? What's happening? Why is Bakugo taking his same explosions like back at him? Like it's getting reversed." This is where pretty much Deku creates a being, and I'm gonna make it the Mirror Knight from Dark Souls. This is where he creates the Mirror Knight, and the Mirror Knight begins to have the mirror in front of me, and pretty much Bakugo saying, "What the hell is that thing?" Which this is where he hears Bakugo. He says, "Oh no, this is not a thing. This is actually a person. It's actually a human being. Well, you could say kind of a human being." Which pretty much the Mirror Knight doesn't say anything, and this is where Deku says, "This is the Mirror Knight. Say hi to the Mirror Knight." Which pretty much Bakugo gets mad, saying, "What the hell is a Mirror Knight?" Which pretty much Bakugo says that. Which Deku says, "Oh, you see." Which this is where Bakugo about to throw another explosion, but this is where he pretty much shoots himself forward at me. Not at me, shit. At Bakugo, not at Deku. Sorry, Deku, guys. At Deku, and he pretty much charges at Deku to hit him with a massive explosion in his face. This is where the Mirror Knight pretty much summons the same person like him, and it's the same exact version of Bakugo, which pretty much the explosion hits Bakugo and Bakugo backs up. This is where the Mirror Knight makes the exact copy of Bakugo, which Deku is pretty much saying, if you can defeat him, if you can defeat your own self, Bakugo, then I will consider it as a defeat and make Uraraka quit it too. Which this is where Bakugo saying screw you, Deku, and all that, and pretty much all that. This is where Deku says, well, we just shall see. Which this is where Bakugo, mirror clone, pretty much begins to get into a fighting stance, get in his same stance like Bakugo, and they begin to start charging at each other. Now, this is where Bakugo throws an explosion, and the mirror throws an explosion too. But the mirror explosion is a little bit better than Bakugo, so Bakugo gets sent flying back a little bit, injured. This is where Bakugo begins to start fighting his own self, and they're having an intense battle because they're basically the same, but one is stronger than the other one, and it's the mirror one. This is where Bakugo gets sent flying back again, but this is where Bakugo learn how to do the full cowling, begins to start. He will learn the full cowling a little bit early, but like halfway. This is where Bakugo puts in the full cowling in his legs, and he pretty much jumps and lets out explosions, pretty much breaking both of his legs at the process. As he's doing that, this is where he charges at light speed and pretty much throws a big explosion, a massive explosion that also will injure his arms at the process. Injure his arm at the process. This is where he pretty much lets out a massive nuke explosion. You could say a little bit of a nuke, pretty much killing his mirror clone self, and he hits the ground. This is where Bakugo can't get up because both his legs are broken and his arm is broken. But this is where he's pretty much trying to get back up, which pretty much Deku looks at him and says, "Wow, you actually defeated the mirror clone. That's quite amazing, Bakugo. I guess I lost." Which pretty much he tells Uraraka to not touch the bomb and pretty much give up. Which Uraraka says, pretty much she gives up. Why would she give up? Because Deku pretty much had a conversation with her, saying that he actually just wants Bakugo to get stronger because Bakugo always wanted to be a hero, but he never put in his training and stuff. And even him having that quirk one for all, he pretty much doesn't doesn't have the strength to will it, which Deku's explaining to her, which this is where she agrees and understands and says okay. But she pretty much says that he owes her a date, which Deku agrees and says yeah. Now, this is where Bakugo is pretty much trying to get back up, and Deku walks to him. Pretty much he heals up Bakugo at his full strength and stuff, and pretty much give him a little bit extra power, saying that he deserved it and stuff. Which Bakugo punch him in his face, which Deku creates a little blood. Well, not a little blood. He pretty much just punched Deku in the face, and Deku pretty much turns at him and pretty much still says that he probably did deserve that little bit, which Bakugo says yeah, a little bit. Which Deku begins to start laughing, and Bakugo laughs too. This is where All Might looks at both of them and smiles, saying that they're going to be good heroes when they grow up, when they get, big and stuff. But pretty much after that, the hero team pretty much won that. So yeah, it's quite the opposite this time. But pretty much this is where everybody was like saying, wow, that fight was amazing. And they begin to start going to Deku saying, wow, Deku, yo, your power is amazing. Like, what is your quirk and stuff? Which Deku begins to start saying he doesn't have a quirk. Well, this is where Deku is about to say he doesn't have a quirk, and still Bakugo says no, he doesn't have a quirk. He just has something else. Which this is where everybody else is saying, wow, really? So you was born without a quirk? Then how are you so powerful? This is where pretty much Deku says that y'all should probably be thanking Bakugo more because he pretty much defeated the Mirror Knight clone that he created of himself. Which everybody else turns to Bakugo, start cheering him on, saying, yeah, you actually defeated yourself, your stronger self and stuff and all that. Which Bakugo is, flexing and saying, yeah, I'm just a little bit built different and stuff and all that. Which this is where Deku says, show off. This is where Deku pretty much starts walking home, and Bakugo stops him and says, can they walk home together? Which Deku says, yeah. And this is where Deku and Bakugo is having a talk with each other. And this is where Bakugo looks at Deku with a serious look and says that if he ever treats his mom differently or hurt her, he's going to make sure to blow his dome off. Which Deku looks at him, and he smiles, he says he won't. Which Bakugo says, you better take responsibility too, which Deku says he will. and they start, laughing and heading home. After that, this is where the next day comes in, and this is where Deku begins to start heading to Bakugo's mom's house to pretty much starts to have a talk with her. And as he's talking to Bakugo's mom, this is where she lets him know that the baby is like 9 months of age and pretty much is like growing fast. Which he looks at Bakugo's mom's stomach, and well, and Deku is pretty much saying, "So this is my child," which he can feel the same power, similar power, not as strong. Well, you could say strong, a little bit more strong, but not as strong as Deku because Deku's powers just keep growing. But it's at that state too. But pretty much Deku's saying, huh, "He is mine," which Baku's mom smiles at Deku, and Deku looks at her and smiles back. And this is where pretty much Deku pretty much has that day. This is where Deku also walks out and begins to start heading to the date with Uraraka, and they pretty much have their date. Deku pretty much shows her a good time, takes her to a fun place, video game place, and they start having fun. After the date, this is where Uraraka saying that that's the best fun she ever had, which Deku says that he knows all the good spots, and they pretty much start laughing together. This is where as Deku's walking her home, she begins to try to talk to Deku, and confess, says that she really likes him and stuff. But this is where Deku pretty much says, "Oh, you're here." And as she's about to say it, this is where Deku says, "Yeah, nah." And he pretty much says that he sees her tomorrow at school. Which she says, yeah. She pretty much starts blushing, saying why I couldn't say it. And Deku pretty much just, starts walking home. Now, the next day, Deku heads in school, and this is where the teacher, Redhead, says that they're going to go on the trip to pretty much go test out their rescuing skills and their emergencies of how they can adapt. And they all start getting sight and stuff. Now, this is where Deku can see the future and stuff and can see what's going to happen. And this is where Deku pretty much alerts All Might ahead, saying that the whole villain attack is going to happen. And he pretty much says to look into it a little bit early, which All Might says, all right, he got it. If anything happens, I'll be right on the way to pretty much help out. Now, pretty much, this is where Deku can see the timeline changing and all possible events, what could happen and what could not happen. This is where he sees that this is a different outcome now, and All Might was going to come on time. But pretty much they're going to be two Nomus instead of one, which Deku says, I made it a little bit different, but Bakugo and All Might can handle it. And if not, I can just step in. Now, this is where they go in, and pretty much the same has happened. They all start looking around. This is where, of course, the villain attack happens again. And everybody gets teleported around and stuff. But All Might is already there running in to help out. This is where, instead of Razorhead getting his ass beat in original canon, pretty much All Might comes in, which to save Razorhead from, getting pummeled by one of the Nomus. Now, this is where All Might comes in, punches the Nomu in the face, and the Nomu gets sent flying back. This is where the other Nomu comes in, and it starts flying and shooting down pellets. Well, sharp pellets at All Might, which All Might dodges. This is where Bakugo comes in and says, pretty much comes in and says All Might, and he pretty much throws a massive explosion at the Flying Nomu. This is where the Flying Nomu lands down and looks at Bakugo and gives him a recurring screech or like you could say something like that. But pretty much this is where Bakugo says, "Wow, you sound absolutely terrible," and he pretty much says, "I should arrange that for you." And he pretty much throws another explosion at the Nomu. Now, pretty much All Might and the other Nomu, pretty much the same Nomu with the shock absorption and stuff, they're pretty much fighting with each other. And Deku looks at the Nomu, and he pretty much sees the whole DNA and the analyzing, and he pretty much says, "Wait a minute, it was human first." Which, this is where Deku tells All Might to stop fighting. That thing was a human once, and pretty much Deku touches the Nomu, and pretty much the Nomu begins to reset. Deku's pretty much resetting before it got turned into the Nomu and stuff. back into its human state. Now, as that's happened, the Nomu pretty much brain is the same like Nomu, and Deku pretty much fixed the brain too. And the person starts looking around, saying, "Where am I?" And he begins to start getting a headache, and he pretty much has a little bit of nosebleed, saying, "Ugh." Which this is where he starts remembering what's happened to him and how he got turned into a Nomu and stuff. And this is where he looks at Shigaraki, saying, "You, you bastard!" Which this is where the person who was the Nomu that was supposed to defeat All Might is a human now. Pretty much charges at Shigaraki, punch him in his face, pretty much giving him a little crack in his skull as he sends him flying. Now, as that's happening, Shigaraki begins to get out the wall, bleeding in the head a little bit. Well, you could say a little bit. This is where the Nomu person who got turned back to human begins to start going to kill Shigaraki, which pretty much Deku stops him, saying, "No, this is not the way." Which this is where the Nomu looks at him. Well, the Nomu person who's a human now, he looks at him and he begins to stop and says, and he begins to start crying for what happened to him. Now, this is where Deku comes with him, comforting him, trying to have him cry it out, you could say. But this is where the other the Nomu, is attacking. And this is where Bakugo defeats it, creating massive one-for-all explosions by pretty much punching the Nomu inside. And pretty much just start blowing up the Nomu inside and pretty much, kills it. Now, this is where, as that's happening, Shigaraki pretty much is saying, "This is not right. This is cheating." Pretty much looking at Deku, saying, you're a cheater," and pretty much he gets the fuck out of there. As that's happening, only him and his servant gets out of there, and a couple other villains, but the rest of the villains gets captured. Now, after that, this is where the villains are getting interrogated and stuff, including the Nomu, well, the human now. This is where he says his name is Jamian, and he's pretty much was a high school student, and he had a quirk where he can take shock absorption, so like all that stuff. This is where he explained his shock absorption was pretty much kind of harming him in a way, because every time he takes a hit or anything, it wouldn't, it would just cause him eat more pain until he went to the doctor. And he said he went to the hospital to meet this doctor, and we're going to say it's that villain doctor that changed Quirks around. Pretty much, he put him to sleep, and ever since then, he didn't remember anything else after that, which pretty much All Might saying okay, and also the interrogators, they're saying okay, and this is where they go check up on the doctor to see what the hell is the doctor doing to these people. Now, this is where, after that, this is where Rob goes up to Deku and thanks him of changing his life and bringing him back to himself, which Deku says is no problem and tells him to just, do good and take care, which he says he will, and they pretty much go on their separate ways. Now, as that's happening, this is where Bakugo comes to Deku and sits next to him, saying that did he know that the attack was going to happen, which Deku admits the truth to him, saying that he can see through the future and see what's going to happen, but he wanted to have the events be a little bit different for Bakugo so he can get stronger, which Bakugo gets a little frustrated but tells Deku to just make sure that no one doesn't get killed or anything, which Deku agrees, and pretty much they start, doing a little bit of laugh, or you could say smiling off in stars. Now, after that, Deku pretty much comes home and goes in his bed and pretty much goes to sleep, and he pretty much says this was a long day. Now, this is part 2 of What If Deku was a new god. If you like, leave a like. Let's get this up to 50 likes. I do another video. My name is Keisha Chia. Thanks for watching, and peace out.
It looks like like you lost another one.